My name is Joe Peroni, and this is the Rise Above Project. And today, of all things, I want to talk about Taylor Swift. There's been a lot of news on this, and I want to talk about it from a couple of different angles, but I also want to talk about it in the sense of how men are actually emasculating themselves. Now, you could ask the question, why should I even care about Taylor Swift? The answer is, I don't. I actually don't care at all. I have tried to listen to her music, just so I'm not saying something about her artistry without actually having listened to it. So I have tried to listen to it multiple times throughout my life. So that's number one. Why do I really care about this? Because as a marriage and family therapist, I'm a social scientist, and I do care about how society is changing. I do care about how society thinks, and I do care about how society reacts to different things and events. And in this case, I would say it's an event that's not an event, right? We have got wars going on, we've got all these important things, but this seems to be big news. So that's why that interests me. Society has been changing a lot, and I really don't completely understand it all. I don't think anybody does. But I want to give you a couple of examples first before I tackle this Taylor Swift thing. So you may have heard, right, that the society right now is so dangerous. There's so much crime. There's so much violence everywhere. And because of that, if you're a really good parent, you probably should keep your children indoors. You know, keep them playing video games. Don't have them go out and socialize, this kind of thing. Or at least that's the end result that seems to be happening. But again, as a social scientist, and I'll say this a lot today, the reason why I have a problem with all that is because I'm looking at it, there is no empirical evidence to back that up. As a matter of fact, crime, especially violent crime, has gone down for over 30 years. So people are following something that's absolutely and provable to be not true. Let's look at something else. A lot of people are complaining about inflation. You go to the store, food's more expensive, that's true. There's a lot of reasons why that there's inflation, but we tend to sit there and be angry at the president, for example, and say, well, he's doing something. Well, let's take a look at something else, for example. One of the major reasons why there's inflation is because the obvious. People, artists, businesses, they want to make money. They charge what they can get. So they charge a lot of money, and if people still participate in paying that price, there's no incentive for them to lower the price. So they keep raising the prices and they keep selling out on things. And then everybody complains about inflation. Well, if you don't want things to keep going up, then stop saying yes with your money. I'll give you an example. The other day, because we're going to be talking about music in a second, I was looking up to go see Billy Joel. Right, he's been around since the 70s. He's a great artist. He just came out with a new song the other day. And I was looking at tickets to go see him at Madison Square Garden. Now, prices I looked at on the low side were about $350 or so. I thought, well, how bad can those seats be? Let me check. This is the truth, at least when I looked this up. You can go to Madison Square Garden and you can hear Billy Joel for $350. But you're not going to see him because the tickets are behind the stage. Now, how is it possible that Billy Joel sells out every single show? Probably everywhere, but at Madison Square Garden, for him, it's easy. He sells out every show almost immediately. And a lot of these tickets are behind the stage, and they're still $350. And yet somebody's going to complain about inflation. Well, if you're paying that kind of money to hear something but not see it, you got to take a look at yourself. Again, society is really changing and it's getting really strange and people are complaining about nothing. Again, looking at tickets, the Super Bowl's coming up. It's about 20 minutes from my house, give or take. Can I go to the game? On the cheap side, maybe you're looking about $9,000, $10,000 a ticket. Who can afford that? Well, it's going to be sold out. Do you want to get a suite, sit where Taylor Swift does? That's somewhere between $1.2 to $1.5 million to get a suite. Are they going to sell out? Of course they are. So then the next time all this rolls around, the prices are going to be higher and people are going to complain. So what I'm getting at here is that I find it very interesting about the way society moves here. And when we're dealing with Taylor Swift, I've noticed a A lot of things. I'll give you an example. To show you where I come from, full disclosure, I am liberal. I consider myself to be very liberal. I always voted Democrat. I don't see a reason for me to switch. But some of the problems with liberals and Democrats are the liberals and Democrats themselves. A lot of them come across very poorly. And this week, with this whole Taylor Swift thing, I figured I would check this out to see how it works. Because I hear from a lot of Republicans that liberals are very nasty to them and they don't have an open point of view. And I thought, that can't be true, because the word liberal means to be open-minded. But let me be open-minded enough to listen to some Republicans. What I did was, on some of my Facebook friends, they were posting things about Taylor Swift, saying that if you're a man and you don't like Taylor Swift, you are a misogynist, you don't support women, you are upholding the patriarchy. Basically, you're a bad person. If you're a father and you have a daughter and you're not supporting Taylor Swift, it means that you're not a good father because you're not supporting girls and what they want to do in their life. If you're married, you're certainly not supporting your wife because she's a woman, and why shouldn't you support every woman in the world, without question? And so all of a sudden now you're a bad person if you have something to say about Taylor Swift. I thought, well, this can't be true. So as I sent out some messages to these people, by the way, who are my friends, nothing came back, and I noticed they put likes on everybody else's stuff that said, yeah, men suck, men do this, men do that. When it came to me, they just, nothing. They just left it blank, right? Or said, hey, maybe you should go to the other side. Really? Let's take a look at this now. Okay. This gets ridiculous. So I like football. I've been involved in sports since I was 5 years old. I played sports, organized sports, since I was 8. I played football for many years, over a decade. I watched football. I remember the Super Bowl all the way back to when I was like 5 or 6 years old, the first one I ever saw. And I have never missed a Super Bowl. So I love sports. Well, I don't want to see Taylor Swift's reaction during football games. I don't care. I don't care at all. And what gets even worse is if her boyfriend catches a pass, immediately you're not going to watch the game. They're going to shift towards her in the stands. Why are we doing this? I don't understand that. And football in general over the years has become soft. These guys are not really allowed to hit anymore. They are wearing different colors on different teams, but they all seem to act like they're friends with each other, and they probably are on social media, and they work out together in the off season now. And they sit there and they hold hands together before the game, they hold hands after. So I'm not seeing like a lot of heavy competition here, but there's enough young people out there that don't understand how football and all the other sports really used to be. And so they like it. And it's still probably one of the best forms of entertainment out there in terms of sports, right? I mean, hockey's becoming more and more popular now because they're not using this soft approach. Again, where I can't blame Taylor Swift and her fans, right? Like, I have to blame men emasculating themselves. The NFL has noticed when they show her on TV that their ratings go up. Now, as I would say, a normal American male that I am, I think that's really weird. I mean, if you show a person who plays music for about 25 seconds during a 3-hour telecast, what would make somebody who doesn't like football tune into football so they could see her clap for her boyfriend? Like, that makes no sense to me, but it doesn't matter. It makes a lot of money, so the NFL continues to do it. And they're turning football, which is an amazing sport, they're turning it into tabloid TV, or like the Star, or the Inquirer, or People magazine. This is not why I tune in to watch a football game. And to keep everything equal, I'm not sure, but I know for sure the Olympics are going to be this summer. I can't wait. I love the Olympics. Great athletes. I want to see it. What I don't want to see is Snoop Dogg doing any of the broadcasting. He's not a broadcaster. Again, they're bringing in some type of stupid entertainment, some guy who's popular for being, well, his music, but most of the time he's popular for being high all the time. What does this have to do with sports? Nothing. And he's a man. So what would you say now? I'm not a misogynist. I just don't want to see people that have nothing to do with the sport on TV all the time. It doesn't make sense to me. So that's my thing about that. But it gets worse, right? Al Michaels is probably one of the most famous sportscasters ever. The guy's an absolute legend. He's been around since I was a kid. And he was the one who did the Lake Placid Olympics in New York in 1980. And he did the broadcasting when the United States hockey team beat the Russians. And he said, "Do you believe in miracles?" Like, it was very famous. They made a movie about it. This guy is an amazing sportscaster. When he's doing a show, one of the football games, they kept showing Taylor Swift. He says, "I don't like to be around this sideshow. I just want to talk about football." Which, of course, that's what he gets paid to do. And he's been doing that for many years. Well, what happened? Is he allowed to have a point of view? No. They took him out of all the playoff games and the Super Bowl. They benched him, so to speak. If you like to use the word, they canceled him. Now, I'm a liberal. I don't think you should cancel somebody because they're mentioning that they keep showing this girl. And by the way, these guys on these football teams, they all have girlfriends. They all have wives. They all have multiple girlfriends. The fact that they keep just showing her seems like this big circle jerk, right? Because now I have to watch her boyfriend on TV on all these commercials all the time. So why am I watching that? What, because Taylor Swift fans think that they're dating? Which, when we say dating, let's be honest, like, I don't really care if he's shoving his stuff into her. Like, I don't care about their sexual exploits. But that's why they're getting on TV more? She doesn't need any of this publicity, by the way. She's way more popular and famous anyway without all this. But it's like, she's doing this, then they show her, and then her boyfriend gets extra, and then the NFL is pushing this more and more, and they're shoving out the people who actually really like sports. The other thing that I find interesting here too is Republicans don't really appreciate Taylor Swift. The reason for that is because she doesn't like Donald Trump, and she wants to push liberal agendas, let's say. And I'm okay with that, of course. I do find that also really odd, that if you have a bunch of people listening to a musician and she says, "Go vote for so-and-so," they all just do that. So it kind of shows their immaturity or ignorance, because they don't have critical analysis to be able to figure out what they want. So as soon as Taylor Swift says, "Go vote Democrat," they all do. Now, I'm torn on that because I want them to vote Democrat, but I'm on the other side of that, I'm very worried about young people, because you need to learn how to think for yourself, right? Like, so that's the other part that bothers me. And as a liberal, I look at this and I go, we're putting Taylor Swift up on a pedestal, not for her musicianship, by the way, I haven't talked about that really, but we're putting her up there as like some, I don't know, like this liberal god. And the funny thing is about that is that she was born into a very well-to-do, or we could say a rich family. Now, I'm not saying she doesn't have some talent, but she's going to have to suffer like everybody else. There's a lot of not famous people out there that never even got started, and they're super talented. She could have been one of those. But her father had enough money to put seed money into a record company. And he bought into this record company that signed her. So, like, you have a rich guy with this woman and basically set her up. This is typically of what Republicans love, right? Because they talk about hating socialism, but there seems to be only rugged individualism if you're poor. Then figure it out. Like, it's on you. And if you don't get famous, it's your fault. You didn't work hard enough. We know that that's not true. A lot of that is that you need money, you need marketing, you need some kind of break, you need to meet the right people, you need to have enough cash behind you. So in this sense, rich people here definitely have socialism, right? Because they're being helped. She was helped immensely in this world. And yet Democrats are actually pushing that and saying that that's a good thing. And I find that really odd. So I'm mixed with that, because the liberal part of me doesn't think that she is, like, she doesn't live the liberal life, right? And that's not anything. Like, when you look at somebody like Bill Clinton, who became president of the United States, he lived in a trailer park, and he never met his father. So he really did go from rags to riches. Those are stories that I like. I'm not a big fan of rich people getting richer, right? Like, I'm not saying anything's wrong. Like, she does some good stuff, don't get me wrong, but I'm not into this whole, like, liberal push that she's an exceptional liberal. Like, I'm not buying into that. So Let's get into this other part. Am I a bad person, or people like me that I represent? Are we bad? Are we misogynistic? Do we not support women because I don't like her music? Well, what normal person would say that? Again, liberals are supposed to be open-minded, ask questions, be inquisitive, be curious, ask people things. Don't go on Facebook and other things and just yell down at people and say nasty things and name call to try to get your way. That doesn't make sense. So let's talk about this for a second. Again, I love music. I listen to women artists all the time. So I'm going to give you a quick list of people that I just listened to this week. And the reason why I'm going to name some of these is I'm going to say some of them slow, because if you are inquisitive, if you're curious, listen to some of the names that I say and go Google them, go on YouTube and find out. And when you listen to some of these, you're going to find out maybe that you don't like these people better than Taylor Swift, but you'll understand why other people do. And you'll understand why people laugh when they go, Taylor Swift is so incredibly talented. If you think that, that's okay, but I would imagine you haven't seen a lot of other people. So let's go down my list. Beth Hart. You probably don't know who Beth Hart is. She sings from her heart and soul like no other. I dare you to go listen to her and you tell me that she's not on a very high level. Imelda May, another one most people don't know. Devil Doll is another one. Let's go back a little bit further, a lot further. Carole King, I listen to her all the time. I love her music. Linda Ronstadt, great singer. Janis Joplin, Heart, I like them a lot. I've seen them about 3 or 4 times in concert. Pat Benatar, I saw her about maybe 2 or 3 months ago. Maria Muldaur, again, most people are not going to know who that is. Look up Midnight on the Oasis, probably the most famous song. She's a great singer. Again, it's all personal taste. I'm not going to say she's better than Taylor Swift, but if you really like music as much as these people think they do, then listen to actual musicians that have been around a long time. Ava Cassidy, again, singer-songwriter, amazing. Her music is beautiful. Unfortunately, she's not with us anymore. She died. But anyway, that's a quick list of women that I've listened to this week. So again, and I'm like a lot of men, so misogyny, don't support women, that makes no sense. Stop saying things like that. It makes liberals look really bad. It's not a good look. This is why a lot of young people, when they should be voting Democrat, are getting fed up and they go the other way. Another thing is they say this Taylor Swift, she's so great, and the other thing is she'll say, well, I've heard on Facebook and the times I've been attacked, they said, well, you don't know anything about music. She has a lot of Grammys, and so therefore she's definitely talented. Okay, again, talent it's subjective, I guess. It's like whoever, if you think she's talented, she is. But let's go over this. When you're super popular, not all the time, but most of the time, what you're doing is you're tapping into the lowest common denominator of people, right? Because if you're playing improvisational jazz or great classical music, you're not going to be that popular. If you graduate from the Juilliard School of Music, you're probably not going to be that popular. Does that mean you have no talent? No, it probably means you have an excessive amount of talent, and it's just not really playing to the average person's ear. So you have to dumb yourself down to be popular. So we have to be really careful when we say, well, this person has 23 Grammys, therefore you should be able to listen to this, and if you don't, you're a misogynist. With that, let me give you a couple of groups and some individuals that have never won a Grammy. And it's really interesting. Let's go down. The Who. One of the most famous bands in the world. Been around since 1964 and they're still playing shows. Never, not one Grammy. Led Zeppelin, probably the biggest rock band in the history of music. No Grammys. Queen. Are you kidding me? Freddie Mercury is probably the greatest singer who ever lived in most people's eyes, right? No Grammys. The Doors with Jim Morrison, no Grammys. The Beach Boys, what do they have, 30 hit songs? They totally changed, they owned that surf kind of music, that Beach Boys sound, like that's them. Did they get any Grammys? Nope. How about Pink Floyd? They sold like 300 million albums, which is probably about what Taylor Swift has sold. No Grammys though. Journey, Everybody likes Journey. They've been around forever. ABBA. How many hit songs do they have? No Grammys. Jimi Hendrix, known as the greatest guitar player who's ever lived. No Grammys. Guns N' Roses, been around forever. Everybody knows who they are. No Grammys. They're going to be doing a movie, I think, on Bob Marley. Bob Marley basically owns reggae. When you think of reggae, you think of Bob Marley. 0 Grammys. Janis Joplin, I mentioned her before. I think I did. Anyway, she's on my list of women who I listen to on a regular basis. No Grammys. So what are we talking about here when we say that you need to listen to her music and like Taylor Swift because she has a lot of Grammys? It means absolutely nothing. You know, it's funny too, they'll say things like, well, when she plays in a town, she improves their economy. She does, because she's very popular, she sells out. But again, it just kind of speaks to the immaturity of a lot of her fans. Because they're like, wow, this is a thing. Yeah, it is a thing. But it is a thing for every single artist who sells out in big arenas. Again, she gives back to the community. Yes, and a lot of people do. A band like The Who, they run the Teenage Cancer Trust. Right? They have been building extra wings on hospitals in the United States for teenage oncology centers. Like, do we talk about that? Like, yes, a lot of these people do it. They had the 9/11 concerts. They had the Kampuchea concerts. They had Live Aid. Like, bands have been doing this and giving back to communities and countries and states and towns since the beginning of time. These kids, it seems like kids, or maybe if you're a Taylor Swift fan and you're 35, it's kind of a little bit ignorant or immature not to understand that every band does that. I mean, Metallica goes and sells a bunch of... They sell out wherever they go. You don't think that helps the economy? Also, The Who got a lot of slack in 2002 when their bass player died. They took off one day and then they replaced that guy and they went right back on tour. And when asked why, the leader of The Who, Peter Townsend, said, because there's so many thousands of people who depend on us. It's not just the people going to the shows that want to see us. It's all the people, all the roadies, the people who set these shows up. All of the people, even the ones who are serving drinks or serving popcorn and t-shirts, at each one of these facilities, all of them depend on that paycheck. So it's not just art for art's sake. There's a lot of commerce involved. These people know this. That's why there's backups to each individual member of these bands. Like, this is a thing. This isn't something new to her. This is something that happens all the time. The other thing I saw was really kind of funny, and it's a little bit true. They said she's great because she has longevity. She's been around since 2006. And I love that perspective, because if you think that the year 2006 makes that somebody's been around a long time, that's a very interesting perspective. Because, again, the Rolling Stones have been playing since 1962, and they're going to be playing here at Allegiant Stadium, like, next spring. Like, they're 63 years old? How? They've been doing it for 63 years. 2006, like, that's not a long time in the music business. The Who's been playing since 1964, and they just finished up their last tour a few months ago. Like, it doesn't make sense. Let's go. Billy Joel is selling out all over the United States, and probably the world. He sells out Madison Square Garden all the time. He's been playing since the 70s. Elton John, same thing. The Eagles, same thing. I could name 50 more. This is not special that she's been around and she's stood the test of time because she's been around since 2006. These people were playing and they were legends before Taylor Swift was even born. So I just think it's funny. I mean, it's great. I love people who love music. I mean, I want everybody to be happy. But if you really like music that much, then take a look at some other people that are around. Like, I think you'll be surprised that there's a lot of talent out there, and there's a lot of talent that's been around for 60 years, which is really amazing. Anyway, to make a long story short, the show's 24 minutes. I don't really care about this. I just care about, how this is with society. Like, it seems to be pushing in one direction, and there's not a lot of fact to back anything up. And they're making this like it's such a big deal. But I would say every person who wants to watch sports and doesn't really want to deal with all of that tabloid garbage, they're not bad people. They just want to watch sports. So leave them alone. Stop with the name calling. And if you're the type of person that doesn't like Taylor Swift kind of music, you know, maybe you don't connect to the lyrics, maybe you don't connect to maybe 3 chords that she knows how to play, or the pitch correcting and the auto tune, because so she's not using her real voice, and you know, you prefer to hear like a, I don't know, whoever you like out there, Andrea Bocelli, you know, like listen to that, listen to Freddie Mercury. If you think that Taylor Swift is on that level and that's what you like, that's fine. Be good with it. But don't start calling men all these bad names because we don't like what you like. That's not liberal at all. Hopefully some of this has been kind of interesting to you. My name is Joe Peroni. This is the Rise Above Project. Please subscribe and tell a friend. Thank you.